Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Liberty. I'm so excited. I love Mondays. I don't know about you. I love all days, but Mondays are exceptional. We love what we do, and I hope you do too. So Mondays should be, I know a lot of people don't love Mondays. They're like, oh, another week. Well,
You just said 415 followers.
come on, we're over 400 followers on Facebook. So that's pretty cool. Praise the Lord of Heaven. So tonight we're going to talk. We're just going to just wander on out into the social abyss and talk about some things that you guys will never unhear these things about me, and make myself a little vulnerable. And we're talking about some conspiracies and my take on a few things. Now, disclaimer. If you watch this show and you enjoy these episodes, you do not have to believe like I believe about these. A lot of really reasonable people that I respect and love, they think I'm crazy when it comes to this stuff. So that's okay. We can still be friends. But I do want to talk about it a bit. And then we're going to play some videos tonight that I recently, today and yesterday, I was exposed to some videos that I just thought, man, I'd love for you to be exposed to them. We're only going to play bits of them, and then we're going to talk about how to make sense of them, because I do believe God's Spirit lives in us as Christians, and there are certain things that the Lord will tell you, that's not really a hill that you should die on. In other words, when I ask the Lord, is this true? Whatever conspiracy theory, you name it, right? Can you go to the title screen? Sure. Oops. Almost there. Here we go. Boom. So when I ask the Lord certain questions about certain conspiracies, sometimes He answers you don't really need to know. It's not really that important. It's not going to help you be a better husband, and it's not going to help you be a better dad. It's fun. You don't feel condemned. You can learn about it. But basically, it's not that big of a deal if you figure it out. Okay, so that's fine. And I'm excited in some sense to get to heaven in the way where all things will be known. And there are certain conspiracies I'm like, man, I can't wait to be like, I told you so, I knew it. But most of the time, I do find them interesting and I find them kind of fun, and that's about it. It's kind of like really fun entertainment in a sense. But today we're going to talk about some that are super practical, they're like a now thing, and they could be. Just hear me out. If these prove to be true, it would pop the top on the conspiracy game, and all the other major conspiracies would be totally validated, in my opinion, or at least large parts of them, if this particular conspiracy proves to be true. And it's a now thing. We have just a few more days, and we're going to know whether this thing's true or not. So we could be living in one of the most exciting times ever, and I personally think it's more fun to believe that, and that's kind of that's where I'm camped. So if you'll grab your bubbly, I'm going raspberry tonight. It's going to be a good show. Oof, we clipped on that one. Oh, joining me as always is my great brother in the Lord, Matt Oakes, and my wonderfully gorgeous, offensively attractive production team. Just smoking hot. All right, let's go to a family update. This collage was put together by that production team that I was just bragging on, and this is the mighty Oakes himself back there at the table. We're at a place the Bible calls the Promised Land. We call it Cracker Barrel, but it's just a place flowing with the goodness of God and the promises of God. And as you can see, Esther Joy is just basking in the glory, the Cracker Barrel glory. So Cracker Barrel, if you're watching this, which you probably are, the top level CEOs and leaders of Cracker Barrel, we salute you, and we encourage you to continue to hold on to your roots. You know what I mean? Don't change, because you got something special. And don't buckle to peer pressure. Get rid of the mask mandate stuff, okay? I mean, we didn't wear them. You guys never bother us. We appreciate that. But one of your employees did ask us to wait outside, and I almost had to punch them in the neck area. No, we wouldn't do that. But seriously, the Cracker Barrel experience is perfect, and then they have like a little bit of suckiness with the whole mask thing. So just Cracker Barrel, make a stand. We'll support you. We'll become great marketers for you. So, all right, next. Let's get into some funny, oh yeah. Okay, so the videos, there's a funny video that you can play right away. That's the animal video. You gotta have a healthy mix of hilarious animal videos. That's it. Yeah, play with audio. It's funnier. It's funny with audio. And hopefully we don't get in too much trouble, but I doubt there's a copyright claim on this. Some guy doing a hilarious voiceover. Actually, you can pull the whole screen in like you did, no? Or no, go to your shareable content too. There it is, right there. She's already set it up. Look at you. Just watch it a couple times. All right, one more time. One more time, last one. Oh gosh, that was great. Okay, let's go back to some memes. Hopefully you guys enjoy those animal ones, but I know I do. So I will talk about a few conspiracy theories that I personally think are 100% true. I'll put myself out there, you know, because I kind of believe all of them, but like I'll go ahead and die on a few hills tonight publicly. That's fine. And then we'll go into the ones at the end that I think are actually like, you know, crazy. I mean, it's crazy, but if they're true, the world will never be the same. Here goes some relevant memes for the time we're living in. When you, oh, sure, we got some comments.
So Judah said your promotion is working. Walmart was out of bubbles today, so we have Black Road.
You're welcome, Bubbly. You're welcome. So Judah mentioned that the promotion's clearly working. Bubbly sold out. Not surprised. This show reaches, I mean, Facebook tries to discourage us and changes the number of views. I'm sure we're north of 20 million views per night now, and they make it look like 100 views or whatever. We're on to you, Facebook. That's a clearly true conspiracy theory. For example,
Cracker Barrel is heaven on earth.
Cal knows Cracker Barrel is heaven on earth. It's where all the promises of God are made manifest, next to a roasting fire in that little checker game. Anyway, when you tear out a man's tongue, you're not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. Well said, Mr. George R. Martin. Next. Apple is demanding that Parler be held responsible for the content posted by its users, or it will take it off iOS. And it did take it off iOS, of course. So basically, Apple is demanding that Parler waive its Section 230 protections while lobbying to maintain its own 230 privileges. Interesting. Voltaire, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. I don't know when our country forgot about freedom of speech. And now, by the way, we'll get to a meme that explains this point. Keep going. Next one. Breaking. Trump supporters banned from owning pigeons in case they try to communicate with one another via the messenger pigeon. Bringing it back. Next. Just moving this into my nonfiction section. Any fans of Orwell's 1984 out there? Never thought that would come true. Next. So yeah, the most reasonable guy in the public sphere ever was actually banned from Facebook. That's like, doesn't even make any sense. Literally, Ron Paul's like the most reasonable, rational, calm guy you'll ever see at the highest political level. With no explanation other than repeatedly going against our community standards, Facebook has blocked me from managing my page. Never have we received a notice of violating community standards in the past, and nowhere is the offending post identified. Thank you, Facebook. This comes from a really beautiful lady who I have a massive crush on. True freedom comes when you live your life for the audience of one. Come on, somebody, please, will you come on? That's good. It's really good. So this is what helps frame up some of my thoughts on this. We could talk more about it, but private companies can do what they want, they say. I'm glad you agree. Now let's get all the businesses open back up now. Thanks for clearing up that debate. Appreciate it. Great. So yeah, the idea of is Google, platforms like YouTube, Facebook, are they private companies? Well, yes. And I actually personally fall on the side that they should be able to censor anybody. For sure. Go for it. Censor anybody. Do it. And then but they shouldn't be in bed with the state and get tons of Anyway, I would like a free market to exist, and then go ahead, ban people. And then clever entrepreneurs are going to compete, and we're going to share in this show several alternatives that we're going to begin investing in heavily, because people don't like to be babysat by their wise overlords. We know what's best for you, and even though you probably consider yourself an adult and you can hear information and make rational decisions and come to your own logical conclusions, we'd rather just do all that hard, heavy lifting for you and tell you what you should think and why you should think it. That just offends people. There's no honor in it. And they're going to reap what they sow. And so I know Facebook stock's getting crushed right now. Some multiple billions wiped off their market cap since what they did with Trump, and not too surprising, right? And the squeeze on Parler, I'm actually surprised at how coordinated this whole squeeze has been. So Amazon pulled the server space for Parler, and to me it is that makes me think all of the actions by the radical big tech overlords makes me think that there's some truth to these conspiracies, because it's just they're strange actions to take. They're desperate actions to take, and it really plays into. They think they're trying to put out the conspiracies. They're doing the exact opposite. If they really are just baseless, made up nonsense, then let people talk it out, debate it out, put forth a reasonable side that shows how silly the other side is. That's fine. What I found about conspiracy, things that have been labeled conspiracy theories, what I find is that the opposing arguments are always ad hominem, or they lack any substance. They're just, they just dismiss it like, you're one of those. But they don't actually deal with the information that's put forth. And that always bothered me. Even I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll keep going.
You have a comment that says, do you know how hard it is to watch Lights of Liberty and paint on a ladder at the same time?
Paint on a ladder? Hopefully that was a compliment, because you're laughing, and you're welcome. Text us pictures, Cal, if you don't mind. I want to see what you're painting. I bet, blue. It's painting blue right now. What's my MySpace password? Next. Boy, that escalated steadily for 4 years. I mean, that really got out of hand, like everyone who's been paying attention warned it would. Old Ron Burgundy. So this is interesting. So Twitter is a little selective in their censorship, of course, because these were some tweets that I thought were maybe not directly inciting violence, but directly inciting violence. There will be blood in the streets, Loretta Lynch. Who says protests have to be peaceful? Interesting. Probably not trying to push people to violence. That sounds reasonable. There needs to be unrest in the streets. Protesters should not let up. I just don't know why there aren't uprisings all over this country. Maybe there should be. You get out and create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them that they are not welcome anymore, anywhere. Real tolerant language coming out of there. Miss Waters there, thank you. She's a real reasonable person, if I've ever seen one. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. That's President Trump. Only one of these was considered violent and hateful. You choose which one got banned. Chuck Norris can do a wheelie on a unicycle. They're so good. If you can picture Chuck Norris doing a wheelie on a unicycle, you know that what we're saying is true. Next. Some kids pee their name in the snow. Chuck Norris can pee his name into concrete. I've seen it. Next. Chuck Norris can sneeze with his eyes open. I've seen that too. Chuck Norris's belly button is actually a power outlet. Oh gosh, I think that's the last one. Okay. So here's my definition of a conspiracy theorist, stolen from somebody on social media, but they summarize my viewpoint perfectly. A conspiracy theorist is a person that researches a subject and then uses logic and critical thinking skills to form an educated opinion instead of just blindly believing whatever they saw on TV. That basically sums it up. Now, in the world of conspiracies, is there controlled opposition? What does that mean? Oh, you can go to me full screen for a second, and then we're going to get into some of those videos. Thank you, my love. My lovely lady. Lady. Sorry. Controlled opposition is a tactic. It's a strategy. It's not anything like revolutionary. It just means if in the battle of ideas, if you want your opponent to look ridiculous and not credible, you can create a controlled opposition, someone representing a position, but they go way too far, they go way off the rails, they just look silly, they're not well thought out. You know, some TV personalities come to mind. I'm not going to name any names, but some of them come to mind that they're just kind of out there. They're too much, they're too intense, they're not reasonable. And what it does is it makes it seem like anybody who believes in an alternative theory besides what you hear in like mainstream media is somehow grouped with those people, and they're crazy and they're the tinfoil hat guy. And I just find that it's a very powerful strategy, because most people we saw, if you remember that video we played several episodes where the people are sitting in the lobby, and there's a beep, there's a bell or something, a beep, and then like the people that are the actors stand up, and the new guest, who's an actual person, learns this like Pavlovian conditioning to just stand up because they didn't want to feel socially disconnected. And then soon she's standing up every time she hears the bell, even when all the actors are gone. And then the next people that come in that aren't part of it at all, they all copy the same behavior, and everybody does the behavior, even though it's just silly. Like the bell rings, they just stand up for like 5 seconds and they sit back down. And it means nothing. There's no reason to do it. It's just totally idiotic. But because people didn't want to feel socially, out of the group, the social pressure led to conformity really quick, right? And so it's the same principle. Like people don't, when you put yourself out there, like I'm going to do tonight, you are committing social suicide in a sense, because most people don't want to associate with one of those, right? And so it's kind of the oldest trick in the book to control narratives, is to play on this weakness in people. The Bible calls it the fear of man. When you're worried and consumed about what other people think about you. When you live in the fear of God, you're free to just look at something for what it is, and then use biblical wisdom and insight to sort of figure out what's really going on. So if like a politician stands up and says, this group of people attacked us and we have to go bomb this country, you can start to think, okay, that's an explanation, and it might be true. Like we're not committed against them, although I'm typically pre-committed against politicians because I've lived on earth as a human being who's been awake for more than a decade. But it could just be that you hear the one side, but you're not just so gullible. You can be innocent as a dove, but you can also be wise as a serpent. And history vindicates those of us who are wise as a serpent. You shouldn't just be a fool. So if they give an explanation, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, like you can hear that reasoning, and that might be the truth, But the Bible talks about what motivates people, especially when you think about evil, is the love of money. So what I learned early on is if you can follow the money, you can learn a lot about how the world works. So is anybody getting filthy rich because of this decision? And if they are, maybe, just maybe, crazy theory here, maybe they have an incentive for this to happen. They have a lot of financial pressure. And the love of money, it's the root of all kinds of evil. So if you see evil in the world, follow the money and you'll figure out a lot about why it happened and who are the actors. Conspiracy theories always say they, and we mean well when we do it, but what it does is it can sometimes, it can sometimes make that person seem less credible because it's like there's this group of ominous people out there that's, puppeteers controlling the whole world. But usually when there are, if you look at the actual conspiracy theories that have been vindicated and proven true, whether, the military released, hey, this has been declassified now, and hey, this was a false flag operation, we actually did this. This is why we went to war. We did the whole thing, we staged it, it was a big performance, and it got us into this country. There's been so many declassified operations like that in our history, just in the last 50 years. Like, what makes people think that just went away, that's just not happening anymore, right? So when they are vindicated, you look back and you can see that it wasn't like there was this ominous group of like overlords. It was usually people who had incentives to do that. That they had a lot to gain. Oftentimes people are motivated, I think, by good intentions. I'll give you an example. Like, I don't believe we went to the moon. Call me crazy, but the official reason given by NASA that we haven't gone back in 50 years is because we lost the technology and it's too expensive to get it back. If you believe that, okay. It takes more faith to believe that than to believe that, hey, they had good reasons, or at least they thought they had good reasons, and they staged it. Okay? Not to mention, like, if you look at the thing that they claim went through the radiation belts and hundreds of thousands of miles across the abyss of space was like a tinfoil can. You can go down that rabbit trail a lot, but once you start to, it's like, oh, they clearly didn't go to the moon. Like, clearly. You see these people, they just got back, they're at a press conference, these three guys just had a miracle mission impossible, and they're talking about it like, and if, I play poker, so tells, you can tell when people are lying, and those guys are just lying. As simple as that. Now, why were they lying? I don't think those three guys were necessarily bad guys. They were probably military men who were told, hey, you got to do this for the defense of your country. You got to take one for the team. This is an operation, and you're a soldier. And what you need to do is put on a good show, because it will help win this war, and this war is a war of ideas. And they probably, Cold War, Russia, we have to do this. We need military high ground. So the reasoning, not everybody involved in the conspiracy is some kind of like evil person trying to take over the world. No, usually the people they put out in the spotlight in the front are the honest people that believe in the cause. They're like a military man. They're on a mission, and they have to convince the world because they're trying to save the world. They were told by their superiors, this needs to be believed in order to save the world. And they said, okay, I'm going to take it to the grave. First of all, it's for my country. So good men, probably good men like my dad, or how I'd hope to be. Somebody who believes with all your heart, you're doing the right thing. And those are the front face, to me, those are the front guys to most conspiracies. But again, like the reasoning, we haven't gone back, we've only gone, you can look this up yourself, but it's like silly, with Elon Musk is not even able to go like a little bit outside. They got to the freaking moon with less technological capacity than we hold in our hand, and they lost all the data, they lost all the telemetry data, and they lost the technology. And people believe that, and if you're free to believe that, I'm just saying you're just believing what people have told you. It's not like a critical analysis where you're like, anyway, it's on both sides is my point. So I've chosen to believe that we didn't go, personally. It takes way more faith to believe that we did. Now, when we get back there, hey, I'm open to being wrong, right? I'm just saying that the official story is silly. And it's been kind of swept under the rug and just, and if you look at the actual film, gosh, it looks so silly now. We've made movies that's so much more believable. I'm talking about, some of the stuff that's not as commonly seen, like the actual module that's coming down, the surface lunar module. It looks like it looks like again, this was in the 60s. It looks like a 60s movie that had very little, the engineers had very little control over. Anyway, it looks like a pub. It looks really silly. And we look at it now, even the star, the backdrop of stars. And you can look about all this if you want, and you make up your own decisions about it. But I'm personally not convinced. I think it's a silly thing, and I would respect the government a lot more if they would just go and say, you know what, it was a mission, we faked it because we thought it was going to achieve this goal and this goal, and we never went. Then I would say, okay, yeah, maybe they're ready to start, because a relationship has to be built on trust. Okay, top officials in the government, all I'm saying is if you start telling the truth to people, we'll believe you more. But if you continually lie over and over and over again, why would we believe you? Okay. So that's one conspiracy that I would throw myself out there on. But there's a bunch of them. You look at 9/11, for example. Building 7 just free fall collapses like a demolition hours after the two towers. And their official reasoning is because of office fires, furniture fires. And there's thousands and thousands of engineers and architects that have been like, there's no way we're gonna believe this load of malarkey. And they have organized 9/11 architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. Check that out. Like, it's a significant. They're the leading minds in this industry, and they are convinced with 100% convinced that this was a controlled demolition by every way you look at it. Now, I'm not talking about the two towers. The two towers, I still would say, based on the eyewitness testimony, again, the NIST official explanation that happened, because there was so much pressure to know the truth, the government released this official explanation. They ruled out hundreds of eyewitness testimony from the day of that heard explosions. They just didn't include that in their report because it didn't fit the narrative. And so, but there's videos where you can just go and watch people on the day, smoke in the background, and the firefighters all bleeding. He's like, yeah, we were there, and then boom, 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 we hear like a demolition, boom, boom, boom. So why would you ignore that? Isn't that suspicious at least? Just include it in the report. If you're not hiding something, just include it in the report. You could say it was a mistake. He heard that because of this or this or this. But the fact that you don't include hundreds of people's eyewitness, the first responders, honorable people that know engineering, that know this stuff, that have been in these industries, and you just ignore it and don't even include it, it's just suspicious, right? If I was there, I'm not an evil mastermind, right? But if I was an evil mastermind, they played their hand too silly. At least include it and then give your scientific sounding explanation why they were mistaken or why, but then you say, well, why would anybody ever take down the towers? Why would, but follow the money. Did anybody in the administration have anything to gain with what happened next? And then you can follow that breadcrumb where it leads. And then maybe you'll be convinced that there was something else going on, or maybe you'll just think, oh no, that just was a happy coincidence. Halliburton and no bid contracts and just a happy coincidence. Just happened to benefit to the tune of billions of dollars, but probably just innocent, happy coincidence. And you can think that. It's fine. Again, a lot of times when I press into these, the Lord just tells me, it's not a hill that you have to die on. They're interesting. The truth is important and justice is important. And many people died on 9/11, and their families deserve to not be lied to dishonor the legacy of those people. It's not okay. It's not love. And all that evil will be brought to the surface. All the people that did those horrible things and whatever was the truth is going to come out, right? So the God is on the side of truth. Now, in your life, you might not be called to become a conspiracy theory ninja. That's fine, right? And if it's not something that you have the anointing for, which personally I've had to pull off so much of that stuff because it can drain me, it can get me in an unhealthy way. I believe the only, this is again talking for me personally, the only reason the Lord's exposed me to stuff like that is actually for intercession, to move things in prayer, to speak faith into situations, to declare over situations, which is why I think the current things that are happening, call them conspiracy theories or alternative theories of what's going on right now, I think are really important to at least expose you to. And I know for me, it's led me to energize prayer and intercession and declaration. And so that's my hope that it'll do that for you as well. We have 30 minutes, so I'm not going to show you the full videos, okay? But I think I have 3 videos. Is that right? Is there 2 videos? Okay, I have 2 videos, and I'm going to show you just portions of each. Start out with the one that I embedded, if you don't mind. I think I embedded one. Oh yeah, first go to slide 21, if you don't mind. Oh. Yeah, there you go. Technical difficulties, but speaking of conspiracies, oh man, see, this is a conspiracy right here, because they don't want you to see the glory of this picture. We're on to them. They've overplayed their hand. Yep, look at that.
No.
Here, hold on, let me do this. Okay. Go to slide 20 first, and then lead into slide 21. Let's try that again. They don't want you to see it, but we're pushing for it. So it's just not showing any of them, huh? Now, we had a crash. Was it last night? Friday. I think we had a crash, right? Our hope is we don't have a crash right now. Now, we had a crash. Was it last night? Friday, I think we had a crash. We're trying something. The tech team is looking really hot right now. It's just like when technology's like, I don't want to work. I'd rather not. Not right now. So I'll keep talking about conspiracies now that you're stuck with me. Oh, they're seeing something. Oh, there it is. Okay, so conspiracy theory that's been proven. This perfect representation of Olaf going under the guise of Smirnoff has been spotted in South Texas near the Waco area. Now, I got to tell you, that is perfect work. So, Jenny and Kyle, you guys know who you are, but we're on to you. And I know Disney's probably got a copyright suit with your name on it. So, be ready. Disney is no joke. They're coming after you. That's a perfect likeness. You gotta mix up something. You gotta put like a ball in a different spot, or you have to, you got to use wisdom, because Disney will get you. All right. So I'm going to show you 2 videos, just sections of the videos. It's information. Now, you guys have probably heard about the Q stuff. Okay, the Q stuff, essentially, I'm going to summarize it really quick. The Q stuff is this idea that high-level military operatives who saw a again, let me just disclosure here. I don't know if I believe any of this stuff. And I'm not trying to separate myself from it. I'm just being honest with you. I don't know if I believe any of this stuff. But I do know one thing, and that's that Donald Trump won the election by a landslide. And if you think he didn't, come on. Are you serious? Have you seen a Trump rally versus a Biden rally? There's no way that Biden won the election. It's impossible. So Now, of course, he's being announced as the winner. And you guys know my stance on politics and stuff, right? So I'm not like my vote for Trump was basically I know I'm a Christian, so I don't really know what these letters mean, but basically an FU to the system. And that was most people's vote for Trump. Wasn't like we love Trump and his character and his morals, and no, it was like we don't want this system anymore. And this guy might be a bull in a china shop that's gonna wreck house and like take out a bunch of dirty laundry. There was just a small chance. It's not like you have a billion people to choose from, right? It's like they give you the options you can choose from, and you're like, oh, I feel free. And there's 3 people you can choose from. And they all usually are on the same team and it's professional wrestling. And there was just this, maybe it was still an illusion, maybe it was still professional wrestling, but there was a hope in me that maybe Trump is really an outsider coming in to wreck shop. Okay, so I know millions of Americans voted like that. They weren't voting because they thought Trump was an outstanding guy. They were voting because they were really tired of how American politics, the direction it was headed, and they thought Trump was an anti-establishment guy. The media sure, seemed to hate him, but also they gave him a lot of screen time. So again, it's very possible that it's just the next level of professional wrestling, and we're all duped into thinking that there's really this battle. It's possible. Okay, I'm not going to write that off. But Q is this story, it's this narrative, it's this alternative theory, called a conspiracy theory, that there were really good people at high levels of government that saw the direction the country was headed in and the evil that was happening and began to plan and plot and stage a giant sting operation. And it's been going on for years. And they're playing this like 4D chess, this crazy game. And Trump was this mastermind piece that they put in power in order to be like the final nail in the coffin to all the wicked people that had risen to the top of the political apparatus in the United States. Okay, that's what Q is in a nutshell. It's just, and there's so many like side offshoot theories with Q, the high-level pedophilia, ring and things like Epstein and all of that stuff, and that's how the FBI worked. Is that they would get these politicians involved in child pornography or sex slavery, and they'd get photos and video evidence of these politicians and leaders, these really powerful people, actors and whatever. They'd basically blackmail these people into doing, saying the ideas that they wanted to be said and doing the things they wanted to do. Again, this is cute. I'm just presenting the story. Don't kill the messenger, okay? Boy, it would make a really good movie, is all I'm saying. Like, it's a crazy theory. And there was all this, child sacrifice, which we see, some of that's just wide out in the open. So I'm not denying it. Some of it's just literally wide out in the open. It seems like it's getting more and more just wide out in the open. But the story is a lot of it was happening behind the scenes where they're like drinking infant blood and like all this satanic ritual stuff. Again, this is the Q reasoning here. I'm not saying that this is fact. I'm saying this is what the community of Q sort of puts forth as what's happening. Well, the first guy I'm going to show you is this British guy. I don't know him from Adam. I've never heard of him. I have no idea how credible he is. But when you watch somebody talk for a while, you get a pretty good feel of like, hey, can you trust this person, right? I don't think God made us just idiots where we can't figure out, just through communication, you can kind of figure out where somebody's at. Now, there are some people that are really good deceivers. If you look at like Ted Bundy tapes and stuff, you're like, gosh, that guy was like really good at convincing people. Okay, I get it. But this guy doesn't seem like a Ted Bundy. He certainly doesn't have, like, you look at motives. Like, Ted Bundy was really good at convincing people, but like his life was on the line. If he couldn't convince people, he was gonna die. I mean, like there was a lot of motive for him to become that. But this guy, he doesn't have that. If anything, he's risking his life, and he's probably gonna be ousted from society and killed or whatever, right? So like, now you could say he's controlled opposition. It's fair. So I'm going to show you the video in a second. I know I'm ranting a lot, but this is important. You could say this guy's controlled opposition, and basically Q is a movement to keep conservative libertarians, freedom fighters, basically not active because we think that the good guys are winning behind the scenes. It's a fair case to be made that, hey, we would be out there on the streets, we would, not rioting violently, but like protesting and making our voices heard. But a lot of us believe that the good guys are already fighting behind the scenes, so we're going to sit back and just hope for the best. It could be that. It could be controlled opposition. Again, I respect you as adults. I'm just going to introduce you to a couple of the sources. Feel free to watch these videos in their entirety later. But let's go ahead and play some of that British guy's video. And if you can do the screen where I can talk at the same time as that guy. And then if you guys hear the audio really weird, could you let us know? Oh, is it doing it again? Sorry, everybody. We're having more technical. Oh, there it goes. You got it. You've done it. You were brilliant. Oh, no, this is the second. Oh, this is the second video. The first guy is the British guy. This guy, I love this guy. And I want to end with this because this, again, I always want to tie it back to the kingdom of God and what's happening in the spiritual realm. And so we're going to watch this in a second. Let's watch this second. First, let's watch the other video, which is slide 22, the one after Smirnoff. And again, I'm going to expose you to just a few minutes of it, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll go over to that other video, the prophet Robin, and we'll put the spiritual slant on it. And yeah, that's fine. You can play it just like that, and you can just go full screen. On the very far right, you can go full screen on that video.
Really quick update. Wanted to give you some information. We've also been sitting waiting for President Trump to do his thing on Fox, and then Fox pulled that. Decided they would put a picture of Biden supposedly taking an injection that would, give him some sort of immunity. Whereas, we think it was probably just vitamin B12 to keep his eyes open. So that was Fox's point. They wanted
I like him already.
The president put Biden in, and then I understand I didn't watch it, but Biden was going to talk about the fighting around the Capitol building and how the president.
Can you turn that volume down just a little bit on track number 2?
So that's Fox's choice. Very naughty. I'm sure that won't be forgotten. So then we went and watched
a little more.
Mike Pompeo, and while everybody's attention was on Mike Pompeo, something else was happening. So first of all, it was very important that you saw Mike Pompeo, although what he talked about wasn't what the audience wanted to hear. They wanted to hear the flags were flying and the tanks were rolling. But what it showed you was that everything's calm in the White House, that President Trump has not resigned, and everything is okay. So that was the important message there, that life is just going on as normal. And while the world was looking at that, quite rightly so, tweets were changing. They went down from 30 minutes to 10 minutes to 5 minutes. Do you remember that I've been trying to say to you guys several times, it's not the content of these tweets, it's the regularity between them. They went down to 5 minutes, and they just did a few of that 5-minute intervals, and then they completely stopped. I want to tell you what that means. It means that embedded teams all over the planet, all over the planet, there'll be some countries that don't have any need of any activity, but in those areas that are hotspots, everyone has reported they are now in position. So everybody listening to that who's a member of the team knows that they set their watches from that point. Every member of the team in different locations.
Isn't that too loud or no?
I don't know if it's even on. If I come from the speaker, pick it up on your mic because it's super quiet.
Oh, is it super quiet?
Sealed envelopes will be opened.
Try turning
There are
this stuff on.
instructions for each team.
Them will already know, but they won't know the ins and outs. And sometimes, you have to go with the written instructions because electronic instructions can be hacked or altered. So every member of the team now has their goal. I can't say target, that's too militaristic. They have their goal and their
when I talk
objective
during
is a
it, can
better
you hear
word.
weird
So I wanted
reverb?
to tell you that. For many of you, it might be difficult to accept or understand, but those of you who have followed me and have watched me know that I actually do speak the truth. And if I said to you that I've spent 1.5 hours talking to the real Q, then that's exactly who
Sounds
I've
good.
been speaking
Okay.
to.
Pause
And
the
in
video
fact,
real
Becky
fast.
was also on that call with me.
All right, so a few things are happening right now. One is we're testing our tech team skills. Two is I'm realizing I posted the wrong video, but it's the right guy. I just haven't seen this one yet. Okay, so the one that I saw, and I think I can summarize it better than watching the video. Basically, this guy was talking about that the blackouts that are happening in Italy and all the stuff that you see happening is all part of this plan where like middle level officials are about to be arrested, and then the next 9 days are going to be this series of arrests until getting all the way to the top where like Biden's going to jail and stuff. Okay, now you hear this. That guy doesn't look like a liar to me. He might be. Okay, I'm not. This isn't a word from the Lord. Okay, but I'm putting together. There's a bit of hope in my heart. First of all, there's a bit of hope operating, which will taint, I guess, or paint at least my perspective in a way. Okay, so full disclosure, I hope this stuff is true. Okay, I want it to be true. And maybe they're just playing off of that in people because we see this wicked and corrupt system growing and growing and growing. And we're like, no. There used to be a time in America where if you want to start a business, you just started the business. And you had economic freedom and you could grow and you could provide for your family and there was freedom. Now, if you want to do anything, you have to get the wise overlords' approval first, and but not before they take like 80% of the value and just make it really hard for you to do anything. I mean, this place has gotten almost unrecognizable from its roots. And so those of us that are watching this happen, we're like, I want this to be true. I want there to be this huge takeover and good triumph over evil, because I'm tired of evil just taking one step, and it becoming the dominant, the law of the land, the normal, the MO of the United States. I don't like the way the country's been headed. So I'm full disclosure, I want this to be true. But now I try to pull that side of it away just for a second, and I just look at this guy. Does he seem like a pathological liar? Not really, but that doesn't mean that it's true, but it just, not really. Okay. Does he have anything to gain personally? Well, yes, I guess. I mean, I don't see ads playing on this is all off his website and stuff. I mean, he might have a monetized YouTube account, and we might be talking about like $100 or something. I don't see because the things he's saying, it's not like it's going to lead him to a book deal if he's wrong. If he's wrong, this guy is just going to be laughed off stage, and the value that he got was like a couple $100 of monetized videos on YouTube. What he has to lose is so much bigger than what he has to gain, and that matters. If you were in a court of law and you were seeing evidence and you were hearing people's testimony and you were hearing two people that were disagreeing, if you were a smart jury, right, and a smart judge, you would be looking at each person's motivation. Did they have motive? How big was the incentive for them to do this thing? What was the cost for them to tell the truth? And even when we look at the Bible, why do we believe, just from a scholarly point of view, we believe because the Holy Spirit lives inside of us. But even from an academic point of view, why do we believe the testimony of the Gospels? Well, because how they were written. It's a miracle that God in his foresight saw that certain things would be so hard to make up, right? Like the apostles that are writing the story write themselves to be not the heroes, but actually look pretty foolish the whole time. They write, so the best explanation is they're telling the truth. They write certain things like the women discovering Jesus's empty tomb. But at the time, they had no credibility in society. This would be like a really bad strategy if you were making up the Bible. If it was all just fake, these would be things that would be really, really not wise strategies or tactics of your larger strategy. And so what is the best explanation is they were just telling the truth. This is what happened. When the word says things like, and he went and showed himself to 500 people, and if you know the time that scripture was written, he's basically saying, and you can go and confirm it. You can go and confirm the resurrection. And it would have been easy to find a lot of evidence mounting in the opposite direction, like this was all fake, this was all fabricated, because the Gospels were written during the lifetime of the actual eyewitness, right? There's so much academic, scholarly evidence to believe the veracity of the Scriptures. But that's how you kind of train yourself to think, like, what does this guy have to gain? And then what does he have to lose? I can imagine a lot of things this guy has to lose, okay? What does he have to gain, really? But then if you look at, like, why did we go to war in Iraq? Well, what did they have to gain? Are you kidding me? They had a lot to gain, like dollar amounts to gain that you can actually quantify and weigh on a scale and say, they were making this decision. Do I lie? Do I tell the truth? Well, lying means a bunch of money. Telling the truth doesn't mean a whole lot. So then you can, like, start to figure out why, what did they do? What's the truth? Well, lying had this huge incentive attached to it. Financial, dollars, incentive. In this guy's case, I don't see it. I see him as a pretty honest guy who has a lot to lose and not a lot to gain. So it doesn't mean he's telling the truth. It just means that it's more credible than a politician who has a lot to lose if he tells the truth, but a lot to gain if he tells a lie. And see, that's the system of politics. The system is twisted incentives to where this guy, to tell the truth, he risks everything. To be a Julian Assange, you risk everything. You have very little to gain when you're operating in the political sphere by telling the truth. But by lying, you have so much to gain. You see, a system like that is going to breed bad behavior. It's not a surprise that politicians lie because the incentives are such. They have a lot to gain if they can, and they have little to lose if they do, but they have a lot to lose if they tell the truth. Okay, so that was one video. So there's basically this whole sting operation. This is what this guy's saying, and that everything's in order, that Trump's being hidden, he's safe. I think it was snug as a bug in a rug, is what the language he used, and that you're going to see them re-inaugurate him in the White House, not in Congress. He's going to do it from the White House, which has been done historically before. It's not unprecedented. And then he's going to start arresting people and cleaning up shop. And then, of course, these videos all come with a, hey, you might want to buy some extra water. And, not fear-based, but just like if you see the 7 years of famine coming, prepare. Like, things are going to, if you can imagine, if that happens, in 9 days, if that happens, I think you're going to wake up to cities on fire. And I'm not a prophet in the official capacity, although I have prophesied. I don't claim to be a prophet or anything, but that's like the writing's on the wall, folks. If what he's saying comes to pass, I do think you'll see a little bit of chaos in the United States. I don't think that'll just be like, oh, well, boys will be boys. Forgive and forget, let's go. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you'll see some S hit the fan, and we did a big Sam's trip today, just full disclosure, and you might want to buy some water and stuff is all I'm saying. Again, we're not fear-based, but if you see 7 years of famine coming, just buy some extra grain. Okay, so the next video, again, full disclosure, there's a part of me that wants this to be true. There's a part of, so I told Sonia to go stock for like the end of the world and buy canned goods, and she bought a 6-pack of black frijoles negros. And I looked at it and I was like, we're good for at least 2 days with this stockpile.
I didn't know you would go.
So, anywho, if you guys need somebody to go Armageddon shopping for you, look up my wife. You'll get just...
You didn't tell me about the video. You just go and go.
She's saying, I didn't want to scare her and say like, hey, the world's probably going to end in a few days, or like stuff's going to get really crazy in a few days. So I didn't do that. But guys, I mean, this guy is saying all this stuff. He's got 9 days for all of it to come to pass. It's again, there's not a book deal waiting for him on the other side of this. If he's wrong, he's wrong. But if he's right, he's telling the truth. That was kind of a tautology there. I just repeated myself. And anyway, you get what I'm saying. So this next video, I find this. We're gonna go a little bit over tonight, if that's okay, because I gotta show a little bit of this guy.
Al said just make a bunch of guacamole.
For our camping trip. Just make a bunch of guacamole. Yeah. When we go camping, the Bessies, we make fresh guacamole and we put it in a huge tub. Because if you're trying to survive out in the wilderness and you're trying to weigh, hey, I can bring my hatchet, I can bring my flashlight, or I can bring a bowl of guacamole, like a big fruit punch bowl. You only got limited space. You got to choose wisely. I say go with a huge like 20-gallon barrel of guacamole. I personally, you prioritize and then you go down that list and you make sure you got the top stuff first. And guacamole is at least numbered 3 or 2. Okay, so this next video is, I love this prophet personally, and I encourage you to go watch the whole thing. This was an episode on the Elijah list. His name is Robin Bullock. I've been watching him a lot. I just love him. I love his authority. I love his boldness. And personally, I choose to believe what he's saying. Now, you can watch this same thing and be like, I don't want to believe it. And you are free to do that. But at least biblically, and I know we're only going to get to watch a tiny bit of this, but I want to give a little bit of commentary on it. And you might be like, hey, Lucas, shut up. I want to watch the video. But you can go watch this, okay? So it's the ElijahList.com, Robin D. Bullock. Just Google, or not Google, use DuckDuckGo or something. Let's seriously get off these platforms. So we're using Facebook as a way to get people to other platforms, and that's it. We're not fans of Facebook. Now, I honor what Facebook did. They released something in the earth that's really cool, but they are not stewarding it well right now, and it's going to be taken away from them. They're not honoring the people who created Facebook, because we create all the content, and they should not be overstepping and harming the people. Anyway, they're under a lot of political pressure, so Zuck, I'm praying for you, bro. I hope you'll do the right thing and stand up for freedom, because that's what this is all about. To this guy, you can go and DuckDuckGo search this and find this whole video. But this adds a spiritual perspective, and what I want to say is what he's saying, it lines up with Scripture. In Scripture, you have these moments where everybody leaves the cause, and there's just like one guy or like one girl who's willing to risk it all and risk foolishness and just stand for hope and faith and truth. And personally, when I watch this kind of stuff, I get energized to pray, and I still, in my heart of hearts, I really want Trump to be. I'm not confused that he's somehow the savior of the world. Obviously, Jesus is king, but he uses people, and I want Trump to be a Jehu, and I want him to be a person who comes in and just, diamond cutters evil and wickedness at the highest level and cleans shop and flips over tables. I want him to be the manifestation of God's, in a sense, correction at the highest levels and the protection of the sheep, and to preserve liberty and to lead to a revival in this country of what things that once we held dear, like faith, liberty, love, truth, justice, right? These things are wonderful gifts from heaven that we ought to all care about. Okay, so let's watch a little bit of this. If you don't mind cutting a little bit ahead, you can hit play.
A Red Sea time or anything, the Lord began to talk to me about the time of Moses in 2012. What he said was in 2012, and I'm going to try to run right up to this moment. What he said was, he said this, he said, the time of Moses has begun. He said a sequence of things now will happen in the world and in the church because the time of coming out has begun. That was in 2012. Right after that, I told that. I said, the time of Moses, the Lord said, has begun. It was so powerful, it knocked me around physically in a circle, and I landed on the soundboard where I was standing and wrote that prophecy. And then right after I told it, the longest river in China turned blood red. The longest river in Beirut turned blood red. Lake Irma turned blood red. Large bodies of water began to turn what looked like blood. CNN caught a fiery pillar going across.
So at this moment, all of us are choosing what we believe. You can believe this crazy guy, Or you can be like, this guy's just looking for connections. He's just looking for coincidences and all this stuff. I believe the prophets. And there were so many prophets that released a word about Trump's second term. I believe the prophets. And so many of them have come out and apologized. We missed it. Hey guys, you don't have to do that. At least wait till February. I don't know why so many prophets are pulling back, because they're getting pressure. There's this religious spirit that's coming to attack the church. And he teaches this, and we're not going to get into it because it's already 10 o'clock. We have to end. He goes on. This video is so cool, so check it out. But it encouraged me the whole time. But he goes on, he tells this story about Elijah makes this prophet. Elijah releases a couple prophetic words that are like big deal prophetic words. One of them is that Jezebel would be eaten by dogs. Elijah wasn't around to see that, but he never pulled it back. That's a bold prophecy, that her body would be eaten by dogs. That is a bold prophecy. But the prophet is not, this goes, it's an identity crisis in the body of Christ right now. An identity crisis in the body of Christ. Because prophets have felt like it's their word and they missed it. You deliver the word of the Lord. And this is where you have to be rooted in grace. You have to be so rooted in grace that you hear the Father's voice and there's no condemnation. And you're not double-minded. You're not tossed to and fro. I encourage my prophet friends who saw Trump's second term, don't back off. Don't back off. Because you're going to hear in the story of Elijah, if you watch this video, you'll hear it. There's the Lord talks about there were a lot of prophets, real prophets, not false prophets, that laughed and did not believe. And they were real prophets, right? So I'd rather stand with the one foolish person who's risking it all for the Lord of Lords to see the fire come down. I'd rather stand with that person personally. And I know it means that, people might think less of me if Trump doesn't become president or something. First of all, what I would say is Trump absolutely won the election. There's no doubt in my mind. Now, whether he'll take office, that's a different question. And I know you might be thinking, that you're kind of playing mental gymnastics. No, it's obvious, right? You don't think Biden really got 80 million votes, right? Is anybody believing that? That feels like willful ignorance to some degree. Irresponsible a little bit. And again, I'm not a pro-politics guy. You guys have heard me. I'd like to see the whole system gone and there just be a voluntary free market, peaceful system. And I know in heaven there is no political realm where parasite classes are stealing from the productive class all the time. But again, in our move towards liberty, there's a hope in my heart that says Trump was actually, and if you follow the prophetic movement, Trump has been prophesied going way back from Kim Clement's prophecy, which is really a powerful prophecy about Donald Trump. And so even though I'm not advocating for a big government that prints a ton of money and ruins our currency and is constantly micromanaging people's lives, I'm not advocating for that at all, and I never will, because I think it's against the character of Christ. But I do see within our evolution forward, right, towards the full manifestation of the kingdom, I see the Lord using Jehus. I see the Lord using people to disrupt the current paradigm to where we can shake off wickedness and move and grow into maturity as the bride of Christ, as the kingdom manifests. So we won't watch this video because we're already over time, but I really encourage you to check this out. Maybe we'll watch some of it tomorrow night if you guys don't watch it. Because it really is, it's so powerful. But what it does is it will bring you to a place, if you believe, to a place of great hope. And I don't think you're putting hope in people, at least I'm not. You're putting hope in a God that uses people to carry out his will on earth, and that is biblical. You're not saying like this person's going to have the ability to save me, right? Put not your trust in princes and the Son of Man in whom there is no salvation. We're all on the same page. Jesus alone saves. But his body is comprised of people, and his will is carried out through people on earth. And so as we look to the Lord, He's our source of salvation and deliverance. My hope is He's riled up a whole bunch of people, the good guys, that are going to take down wickedness and create a place that looks like, feels like, tastes like, smells like, sounds like heaven on earth. Because that's when His kingdom manifests. It's a place of freedom. It's a place of joy and prosperity in every way. And this country has these amazing godly roots, and our past is filled with wickedness as well. That's fine. I mean, no one's justifying the wickedness. We can all concede, hey, there was bad back there too. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The good things that the Lord released need to be preserved. The bad things need to be corrected, and we grow forward stronger. But liberty and individual responsibility and mutual honor was an amazing thing released onto this land, and I want to see that come back. So I, for one, am very hopeful for the future. I am excited for the next 9 days. We did do a big Sam's trip, but that's, again, it's because if you see the famine coming, just prepare. Don't be scared. Don't be fearful. The Lord will provide. He gives you wisdom. He'll make a way. And hey, if you put the Lord in a position where He can only do a miracle to bail you out, He will. Okay. But you can also live in the abundance of God. You don't have to live miracle to miracle. You can stay in the promised land. That's our episode for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We never landed on the moon. And I'll just end with that. So, oh man. Any other really fun conspiracies that I left out? There's so many of them. But again, a lot of them are probably controlled opposition, just to make us look crazy. But we don't even need help doing that. We look crazy enough as it is. If you can pull up our ending screen, you beautiful lady. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, share the broadcast. Stay tuned because we're going to start promoting heavily other platforms that don't treat you like a little kid that needs to be managed. And my hope is Facebook will do the right thing and rediscover its roots. And I'm not anti-Facebook, but I'm anti their current actions. And I hope they repent, and I hope they return to their roots. We have changed Let's Talk Liberty's production schedule. It's now Monday through Thursday because the Bessies like going on adventures, and Friday's a good adventure day to get a head start on our camping and stuff. If we got to prepare like barrels of guacamole, we just want to have plenty of time. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us.
Kyle just said pizza-shaped earth.
Pizza-shaped earth. Flat earth. So, flat earth, I mean, there's been a season where I was like a strong flat earth guy. Again, do we have time? No, not time. Sonia's looking at me like probably not. Okay, here's my point. Here's my only little 2 cents on the flat earth thing. If you get into flat earth arguments, if you find yourself just immediately saying, oh, there's no way this is true, and anybody who believes it's an idiot, you're not being scientific, you're not actually being helpful to the conversation, right? That's all. Just hear their arguments, and then present your own arguments, and then engage in adult conversation, and maybe you'll just decide, hey, I'm not convinced, that's fine. But that's what truth-seeking looks like. Truth-seeking doesn't look like, oh, you're one of the flat earth guys, because when you actually get into it, they actually have really strong arguments. Now, I'm not saying that they're right. There could be really good explanations for them. For example, when you're standing on the coast of Lake Michigan and you see the Chicago skyline, according to the numbers that NASA puts out for the size and shape of the earth, that's impossible to do. Now you can say maybe light is bending, gravity is bending light, right? And again, this is curvature of the earth. We can't measure curvature. And they've tried so many different times. If you look at Kansas, if you look at Bolivian salt flats. I mean, it's a long rabbit hole if you want to go down there, but no one can measure curvature and prove it. And that seems like an easy thing to do if we're living on a ball. If we're living on a ball, you'd think that there'd just be one guy that's like, oh yeah, check this out, look at this laser, and it clearly bends over and the Earth, but you can't do it. And I've seen hundreds of these experiments now to where I'm not saying the Earth is flat. I'm just saying it's not like so clear. The only evidence we have for a ball Earth that I'm aware of, actually two evidences, one of them is pretty strong.
Judah is making the comment, the Bible says circle of the earth, so that means earth is round, right?
The Bible says circle the Earth. So I think the Bible is not dumb, personally, and a circle is not a sphere. So again, if I was putting on the flat Earth proponent's hat right now, which I'm kind of like, I don't really care about the flat Earth right now, is my actual take on it. I'm just saying, like, I came at it as like, oh, flat earthers are so dumb, but then I kept getting exposed to these arguments that I was like, oh yeah, there should be an easy explanation for this. People can't find the curvature, so that should be easy to disprove. So I went to go disprove them, and I couldn't. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Why can't we find the curvature? It seems like it would be really easy if we're living on a ball, especially with huge bodies of water called oceans. It seems like it'd be really easy to find the curvature. Oh, well, don't ships, go over the curvature? No. You can bring them back into focus with a telescope. It's just atmospherics and the way your eyes are. Just like if you look down a long hallway, it looks like things are getting smaller. It's just the way no, they're not disappearing over the curve. And again, if you stand on Lake Michigan and you see the Chicago skyline, it should be buried under like 60 miles of curvature. You should never see those buildings. And so the way the weatherman says is, oh, it's a inverted, what do they call it? A mirage. It's an inverted mirage, but inverted mirages are upside down. So first of all, it doesn't make sense because you see the actual skyline. I mean, you see the buildings. And there's multiple of those, not just that's one example, but there's in the, off the coast of Hawaii, you see the islands that you shouldn't be able to see and all this stuff. So the circle of the earth thing, if you're looking down on a flat earth model, it's the UN flag, which is interesting, but it is a circle, and Antarctica is this very long ice structure that keeps the water in. Okay, so that's the flat earth map. Again, I'm not saying it's true, I'm just saying that's what they believe. And the sun is a local. The other day I was outside and I saw the sun, and the beams of the sun were going at different angles through a cloud. Okay, now you can say, oh, like try to think about that with a sun that's like millions of miles away. Try to think about because a localized light will beam out. But if the light's all hitting us from way far away, how in the world do we get localized sunspots and light? I mean, that's maybe all the light converges at a spot right before the atmosphere, and then it creates like a localized. Maybe there is a strong explanation. My point in the discussion isn't that the earth is flat. It's that because there's no discussion around it, it's suspicious. All that you'll hear are name calling. No one's actually providing alternative theories to why you don't find curvature. You just don't hear it at all. The top scientists just laugh it off like, we saw a picture from NASA, case closed. I also use Photoshop, and I know they lied about the moon landing. So I don't, come on, they lied about the moon landings. Come on. I mean, it might all start there, but it was clearly they lied about the moon landings. Clearly. All within the Nixon.
We spoke on some moon landing. Moon looks round to me. I'll bet Earth may look the same if we ever visit the moon for the first time.
For the first time. Reese, I bet Earth would look the same if we visited the moon for the first time. And the moon is the weirdest thing ever because you only ever see one side of it. And if it was this, and then you can see through it, there's all these pictures where you can see stars through the moon. The moon is a weird thing. And the more you look into it, the more you're like, I just don't have any idea what's going on. Because it's weird. The moon cycles. You're supposed, when you see that little thumbnail, think about what the explanation is, that the sun's behind the earth and that the shadow of the earth is making that crescent moon, but you can see the moon and the sun in the sky at the same time when it's a crescent. Think about, that is, the physics don't line up. Try to recreate that. Try to put a beach ball, shine a flashlight behind it onto another ball to create the crescent, and then move that other ball on the other side with the flashlight and try to keep the crescent. I mean, you just can't recreate it in a scientific way. It's just a weird thing. So I'm not saying that I know. I don't know. I don't trust NASA because they lied about the moon landings and they've lost credibility. And until they come clean about that one, I'm not going to trust them. That's not going to be my authority. They're not going to be the people like, oh, they took a picture, so I'm the case closed. No. If they lied once and they're holding on to that lie and they refuse to come clean about it, they've lost my trust.
It said also said the angels will pull the four corners, whether it's round or flat, will show picture in Jesus on either.
It's good. Yeah. There's a lot of scriptures that do say that there's a flat earth. Now, it might be figurative, it might be metaphor, that's fine. Again, I'm not like, it's not a hill that I would die on. But what I found in my own flat earth adventure is that it's not like there's just a bunch of idiots that are just pre-committed to something. Most flat earthers tried, because they wanted to keep their sanity, they tried to prove that the earth was round through a simple, if you try to go prove the earth is round, not by using NASA, you get back to me when you do it. And I think what will happen is you'll be like super frustrated, like, why are flight patterns like that? Why don't we fly over the South Pole? Why doesn't anybody go to Antarctica ever? Why are all countries maintaining this treaty for almost 100 years, the Antarctic Treaty? We're going to war with each other all the time, but somehow this treaty has stayed in place and we're just not allowed to go there. Why, what's going on with... Anyway, there's so many weird things when you look into it, and it doesn't mean that the conspiracy theorist is right. It just means that if we're just, that there was a scientific, I'll just give you an example. There's a scientific experiment that was conducted, and I saw it, and I thought it was interesting. There's two that I'll share with you. One were these Harvard grad students that believed that the Flat Earth Society was a bunch of idiots, right? Sorry, we'll just keep going, huh? Okay, so you can look these up. It's pretty funny. They're cute. They're interesting. And these two nerds had the Guinness Book of World Record largest magnet. Okay, and they thought of this experiment that would prove that the Earth was round. They would go and they would magnetize the magnet. They would go to California where there was this huge mountain that would serve as the opposite end of the magnet. I'm not super familiar with the experiment, but I was listening to it and they seemed to know what they're talking about. Okay, so they would ionize this thing or something like that. Again, I'm revealing my ignorance, but the experiment was such that they could set up this other device in Yugoslavia or something, some place according to the size and shape of the Earth, it would be on the other side of the Earth. So some place in Europe. So they had this guy, they had this meter in wherever it was, across through the planet, and they were going to create this really strong output, and the sensor would draw a straight line to where it was from, where it was emitted from. And since it was a magnet, it would go through the core of the Earth. There wouldn't be it wouldn't have the same light. Maybe bends or something, so that this magnet would be like a sure way to prove that the Earth was a globe. But when they did the experiment, it worked out to where when the sensor found the signal that they let off, it was perfectly aligned to what you'd imagine on the flat Earth map. So that was interesting. So then they became flat earthers because they thought that was conclusive evidence. And again, you might just disagree with them. Another one, and this was, I thought, I can explain this one better because I won't sound like an idiot because I didn't understand that one all the way, but it sounded interesting. Another one is these two surveyors, so think about, if the Earth is a ball, that means that when a tall building is standing on the ball and there's two buildings next to each other, maybe 100 miles away or 200 miles away, and again, we know the math to find the curvature, so it's not like it's just so big. The ball's just so big that you can't measure it. No, they already have the ratio of like how far you go out and how far it has to drop off. So if there's two buildings on a ball, they're going to bend away from each other. You guys see that? The bottoms will be closer than the tops, even if it's just a tiny, 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 tiny bit. But the longer you go away, the more curvature, right? So if you're here, it's like you can't even tell. But if you're here on the ball, then it's like you can tell, right? You get the science, right? So these guys have this surveying equipment that all it does is it finds the female, there's a male and a female component, and it finds the distance between those two things. That's all it does. And surveyors use this to figure out, to map out stuff. And they have this really expensive gear, and they're going to do this simple experiment. They go on the coastline, so they're at sea level, so they know that their starting place is the same. And they pick two buildings. I think it was like 30 miles away, or maybe it was 300 miles away, but it was enough to where you'd have significant curvature based on the numbers. They put that machine in the lobby on the first floor of each building, and they took the measurement. They went to the 50th story, and they took the measurement, expecting it to be several meters different in terms of the lengths between those 2 points, right? The top of my pen and the top of the can should be farther apart than the bottom and the bottom. And they were identical. So again, it doesn't mean the earth is flat. It just means that that experiment didn't prove that it was round. And they were surprised. And these guys weren't flat earthers. They were actually committed to a globe earth, even actually. You know, the documentary was interviewing them. They're like, oh yeah, we don't believe it's flat. We're just not sure what's going on. Like, they weren't flat earthers, but their experiment didn't get them there. So I just find it interesting, as all, that you should be able to, when you just use your eyes and your reason, I don't think you get a globe earth, because Kansas doesn't make any sense. There's got to be a drop off somewhere. There's got to be like some kind of compensation somewhere on the ball. The ball eventually has to drop off, even if you have really long flat areas. Eventually you got to find the curvature. So I don't know what shape the earth is, but what I do know is that as I went down that rabbit hole, I was surprised that I was taught from a young age that this heliocentric model over and over again, and I had to first come through a bunch of programming and say, maybe I was lied to since I was a little kid. And by well-meaning people, not people that are evil or bad or anything. And you might ask, why would they lie about that? Well, if I were the devil, and if I can make you believe that you were a meaningless speck in an infinite universe, and there was just all this stuff, and it was chaos, and you came from monkeys, and it was all this evolutionary process that started, and you're just stardust, and you have no meaning. Well, atheism can exist pretty good in an environment, in a intellectual environment like that. You know where atheism can't exist? You're on a flat, motionless plane at the center of the universe, and clearly there's a creator that put you there, and clearly all the stars, Another one, there's these guide stones in Georgia that always see Polaris. What was it? It's like, there's a hole, so it's just a rock with a hole in it. And it always sees Polaris.
And the same spot like every single,
and
all throughout the year.
Throughout the year, 365 days a year, in the same spot. There's a star relative to Earth. We're all spinning around. Okay? But there's a star in the sky that always lines up with this little hole in a rock. I just don't know how it works. Open for an explanation. If we're really spinning around constantly, and then our whole galaxy spinning around, everything's spinning around, we're all flying around. Just explain to me why the Polaris star is always seen through this little keyhole all the time, 365 days a year, same spot in the sky. Not sure. Good questions. Anyway, that's a fun one. You can see that I've spent a lot of time, probably too much time on that stuff. But this conspiracy, this alternative theory that I laid out for you tonight, that I hope you'll go watch those two videos, it's going to either be true or not in 9 days. And if it's not true, we still didn't land on the moon. That's all I got for you. But if it is true, it pops the top on all other alternative theories will gain great credibility. And I'm really excited to see. And I'm praying into it because I want wickedness exposed at the highest levels. I want our country to be saved and restored and redeemed. I want freedom to reign. So I have a dog in this fight. I have hope in my heart that we're going to see something awesome in the next 9 days. And I hope you'll join me in believing and declaring. And, I don't have like a clear word from the Lord on this or anything like that. So it doesn't shatter my faith if it doesn't happen, but I am an agent that chooses what I believe in. So are you, and it's kind of fun to believe that theory. So hopefully, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Write me a message. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm crazy, and we can talk about it. Love you guys very much. we'll sign off for tonight. I know I pushed Sonia 30 minutes over almost, but she's still enjoying it. She's loving it. Signing off. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central Time, and we'll talk some liberty then. Blessings.